You're listening to Everybody Pulls the Tarp, the go-to podcast for high performers. I'm Andrew Moses. Each week, you'll hear my thought-provoking conversations with Olympians, pro athletes, CEOs, elite coaches, best-selling authors, and other high performers to uncover their secrets to success. Get ready to be inspired each week when we talk about leadership, teamwork, work ethic, and more. Are you ready? Let's go. This week, my guest is four-time Emmy Award-winning broadcaster Scott Braun. He's the executive producer and host of Foul Territory, a new digital daily live show he launched last month with former Major League Baseball stars Todd Frazier, Adam Jones, Erik Kratz, AJ Pierzynski, and baseball insider Ken Rosenthal. Throughout his career, Scott has held various different roles at MLB Network, NHL Network, SiriusXM, and many more. He is hardworking, innovative, and a team player that always pitches in wherever he can to help. We recently sat down to explore his career and everything he's been up to lately, building something new and entrepreneurial in baseball media. For Scott, it all goes back to career advice he received many years ago: to say yes to as many new opportunities as you can. It's advice he used early in his career to get his foot in the door of a challenging industry, and every day since then to become one of the most well-rounded personalities in the sports media business. The conversation you are about to hear is about far more than baseball, TV, and media. It's all about what's possible when you follow your passions and are willing to take on new challenges. This episode is filled with important career and life lessons for everyone, no matter what it is that you do. So, let's pull the tarp and get straight to Scott Braun. Scott, I can't wait to dig into all your story. Welcome to Everybody Pulls the Tarp.
Andrew, I appreciate it. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this one for a while. We have some mutual friends. So I've been in baseball, which plays to the name of your show. So I'm all about it, man. How you doing?
I'm excited to dig into your whole story, Scott. Long time coming. So where I want to begin, you brought some big news to the market a few weeks ago now, the launch of Foul Territory, an exciting new show. Where I want to start, where did the idea for the new show, the new format come from?
I've grown up with current and now former players. My entire professional career has been in baseball, and I started really young in the broadcasting world at MLB Network. I believe I was full-time there starting at age 22 or 3. And so you grow up with the players. Most of the people I worked with were much older than me, especially on the broadcasting side. So you just get the pulse of what they're looking for. And I think the biggest topic that always comes up is we need to be marketed more. We want to have our own voice. We want to be able to say whatever we want. And you see that so much. It's so commonplace now in the digital and podcast space and social. And that's what the younger audience is used to. So this was a collection of conversations with current and former players that suddenly turned into an entire brand and a business and a daily live show, and a lot of exciting announcements coming up around that as well. But yeah, Pierzynski, I'm in his home right now. If people are watching, they can see me back here. We've got like a studio set up for former players that would like to be more involved with their voice in the game. And these are like the prominent voices. AJ is it's him and John Smoltz are the top two guys that call all the biggest games in baseball for Fox. Adam Jones is just recently out of the game, super authentic and hilarious and tells it like it is. So does Todd Frazier. Erik Kratz is like the wild card where he's like the Robin to the Batman for some of them, but he knows everyone. Minor league guy for years, but also played in the bigs for a long time. So he's friends with every pitcher. He's been the guy that's grinded it out for prep and all of that. So anyway, with the company itself and with the shows, you're just getting multiple hours per day of real talk baseball, which I just felt like was lacking, especially from the player perspective. There are other companies that have tried to do things where players are contributing either articles or some type of podcast, but it felt like very publicist oriented. I just felt like there was a massive void in the sport. And it's not just me. I'm not the only one. Many others had been talking about this for a while. Hey, Pat McAfee show's the biggest thing in football right now. The younger audience watches that over watching a show on TV about football. Where is that for baseball? Baseball's not badminton. And no offense to badminton, but it's the number 2 revenue sport. So I Am Athlete, which is another inspiration, which is Brandon Marshall's company, a bunch of NFL players that do better interviews, because player on player interviews, if the host or interviewer is asking questions where there's no bounds, the answers are often better, or they're at least unique and authentic that I want to feel those out. So we've got broadcasters, but they're also players that were in the clubhouse with these guys. You add it all up. Ken Rosenthal's our senior insider. He's best in the biz, breaking every story. So it's just like your digital home for this now. And the Twitter and all of the response has been great. Twitter and then even TikTok especially, which has always been a goal of mine, to get to the younger, serve that younger audience and an international audience on TikTok with our interviews, blowing up. I mean, to not go too overboard on, it's only been a few weeks, but it's exactly what I dreamed of in terms of the response from the young audience that was me for many years too, that felt like I didn't have a place to go. Last part is gambling too. I'm big on betting. I bet every day. And there's only certain things you can do if you're a league employee. Now you can do whatever the hell you want. Also, I don't know if I can curse on this show because we curse a lot on our show.
You can say whatever you want, Scott.
Awesome. Okay. So now I don't have to worry about any of that. Our players, former players can bet. This isn't Pete Rose action. Former players can bet on baseball. Like, they're not playing. If they're coaching, if they're on the team to some extent as a trainer, whatever, if someone's like that, sure, they can't, obviously. But these guys are not that, and they love to be competitive and bet. So I think even in the betting content space, and there'll be some big announcements there soon, we've been doing that every day and addressing that, not shoving it down everyone's throat, making it just part of our conversation. And that content doesn't exist. If it does, someone call me, because I don't see any other like 5 former all-stars kicking around what they should bet on for the day and utilizing numbers from, sharps or experts as well. Like, I want to take that to AJ Pierzynski, who's watching every game every night, and say, hey, do you think that pitcher's K-prop's going to hit or not? Like, that's the next level that I want. So a lot of cool shit going on, and you can tell I'm excited.
There's no question. I can tell you're excited. It sounds like an incredible formula, and I just can't wait to see where everything goes from here. I'm curious, Scott, for you leaving a well-oiled machine, a well-established operation like MLB Network and some of the things that you've done in the past to something new, entrepreneurial, innovative, cutting edge. What's been the biggest difference for you day to day?
Pulling the tarp. I mean, think about it, right? When you're working in a startup now, coming from a company that has hundreds, if technically you could call it even thousands of employees, is just different. My job at MLB was, you're a straight up TV broadcaster. You show up, you do your show. Sure, occasionally, because I like to think I'm pretty good at tech or even lighting to an extent. On a weekend show, there's not that many people working at MLB back in the day. And I'd have to say, hey, does that light need to be on? That kind of thing. But this is a whole nother level of that, right? Like, I'm in a studio right now where there's a standard operating procedure every day of things that need to be on. There's troubleshooting going on because we're doing pretty complicated tech by having multiple people in different home studios, then bringing in guests from other places. There's a ticker, there's graphics, there's video. It's full on, TV online. So there's a lot going on there for me to manage. I also have always, Andrew, loved to be part of the business side of things, always. And I've had multiple situations in the past where I've worked behind the scenes, startup wise, or helping someone out in that front. I have a consulting business, which I still exist, but I've done a little less with it because a lot of my time is now based on this. So I'm on the sponsorship side of things, on the distribution side of the conversation, the business side, the production side, the social media side, and then even fixing up our studio on weekends to make sure that the wood panels look perfect on the desk. So you name it, I'm in.
Is there something that early on in your career, when you were getting going, that you thought to yourself, hey, I may never use this, but that experience or that conversation has just influenced you in a meaningful way and continues to influence you in a powerful way today?
Well, one that comes to mind is I went to a broadcasting camp when I was a kid. I went to many of them, but I remember one that stuck with me always was Ian Eagle, who said that, especially early on, you need to get into the business by saying yes and just taking on as much as you can. It's actually become a flaw for me at times, but I've been able to, at least for now, balance it out a little bit, is because you get asked to do something and you want to do it. And eventually get to a time in your career, hopefully, where you can say no to certain things if they don't fit your agenda, your schedule, your compensation, whatever it is. But in the beginning, that stuck with me. And yes, plagues me at times. But I remember he told the story of, it was HBO, one of the boxing spots, and he's told it publicly, I would think, at this point. saying, hey, you do boxing, right? He's like, yeah. He had never done boxing. He learned it. You figure it out. I mean, it's not like you need to go to med school for a billion years to be able to do it. I mean, he's clearly talented. He figured it out. I did that on the play-by-play side for many sports, including in college. I remember I was working for ESPN radio as an intern, and they needed someone to report on a dumpling eating contest. And I was like, yep, I can do that. So, just saying yes to everything early on helped a lot. I was insanely aggressive, not cutthroat. I'm actually chill. I'm not like that competitive at times, but insanely aggressive in terms of trying to get myself involved at the low high school level with internships. That included working for News 12 New Jersey. Before I was old enough to be an intern, I shadowed a guy, a broadcaster, and then I ended up helping him figuring out some ways for him to optimize covering like 8 high school football games in one night. So it ended up becoming a mini internship, even though I wasn't allowed. Then they started sending me out with a cameraman or a photog. It was a guy to do interviews as long as my face wasn't on camera. Again, super not allowed. Eventually got caught. I was there like I'd go to school, play basketball if I had games or something, and then work in News 12 till 2 a.m. until the security guard was like, you can't tell me every day that, oh, you're just hanging out with your uncle till 2 a.m. You're 15, you look 8. So stuff like that was pretty frequent in my life.
I'm curious to dig into that a little bit, Scott, because one of the things that I noticed about your career and your resume is early on, especially in college, you weren't doing necessarily just the traditional on-campus stuff that a lot of journalism and broadcast folks do. Was it just that comment from Ian Eagle to say yes to everything? What drove you to pursue creative opportunities, broadcast opportunities off campus and really diversify that skill set?
Otherwise, how am I getting a job? Like, what is my differentiation? I don't think I'm the world's best broadcaster, the world's best commentary, the world's best play-by-play, whatever. There's tons of talented people. There's multiple ways to get through that, from networking, timing, skill set, everything, right? But for me, it was, there's tens of thousands of students going to school and doing broadcasts and doing their campus TV and radio, which I did and I loved, and you need the reps. But my thing was, if there's an opportunity anywhere else outside of that, that's going to be a differentiation. And the way that I actually got into that was entrepreneurial. So I, at a very young age, was absorbing like Yahoo Sports. It was Larry Beal. Chris Carter would come on sometime. He was still playing, and they would go over fantasy shows. And that's what I was watching, because I wasn't allowed to have a TV in my room. So I would watch that on my computer, like really crappy quality and all of that. But that was the only thing out there. I mean, I'm talking like 20 something years ago at this point. Like, it was the only digital video you could find out there. I was able to use that to turn that into jobs. Just my interest in that front versus going the local news route and all of that. I said to myself, and not in a cocky way, I was just like, I don't want to go to middle of nowhere and do local news. I'd rather just do sales, because I like doing sales and I can still be involved in sports or entertainment on that front. So in that way, in college, one of the, I guess, unique factors that I brought to the table was, hey, let me help you with digital video for free. So that was my advantage. I did that in Chatham, in Cape Cod, for the Cape Cod Baseball League when it was just starting their broadcast program. We brought a lot of their pregame, postgame, game, everything digitally. Flip cams back then, right? Hey, give me $150 out of your budget. Get me a flip cam, and we can put all of these cool interviews online. And a lot of the players ended up being drafted, most of them, and then going to the major leagues. So same thing like with ESPN, they had a campus connection program. Not anyone could do, but you submit, and many students across the country would be on ESPNU. I just was able to pitch them further examples. Hey, you guys have a website just dedicated to the Miami Heat. They have like 4 full-time writers. LeBron had just gotten there. It was the end of school for me. Just to give an example of how I got in with ESPN, I said, I've got a flip cam. I did this thing out in the Cape Cod Baseball League. I knew the writers. I had interned for the Heat. Said, do you want to do on-camera segments sometimes? Because right now you put an article up and the video accompanying it is Brett Favre with the Jets or whatever. It's like, that makes no sense. How about we do a 3-minute clip or a 5-minute clip, because people could absorb a little longer back then, with your Miami Heat numbers guy, and we'll talk to him, and that will be paired with it. And they're like, oh, that video is performing much better. Yeah, no shit. So we did stuff like that. I did it all for free. And then that turned into, hey, do you want to call some college hoops for us? So those were the same thing with CBS, CBSSports.com. Their hub was in Fort Lauderdale. They started seeing me everywhere at games. They said, hey, Lauren Shahadi, who's our full-timer, can't do every day. She's starting to do some other things. Funny, her and me got hired at MLB the same time and is a good friend. I would fill in on the days that she wasn't there because I'm like becoming this digital sports person. So that was my leap into that world. And look, now I'm doing this full-fledged. Like, this is kind of the dream for me now, to do Foul Territory in that way. It's all digital, social. Sure, there might be some distribution deals with TV and all of that, but I'm kind of feeling the full circle approach here now.
It sure is full circle, Scott. I'm curious. I mean, obviously you took that advice from Ian Eagle to always say yes. You put yourself out there a tremendous amount to take risks and take on new opportunities. Was there a time that you remember where you put yourself out there and were just flat out rejected or kind of pushed back and they say, hey, rookie, step aside? Was there a moment like that? How did you navigate that?
Yeah, there's been multiple moments like that. If I go very far back, and this is another pull the tarp situation with the Somerset Patriots, they had open auditions to be an on-field host. And now it's the AA for the New York Yankees. It was independent league back then. And I grew up somewhat nearby in Warren, New Jersey. So I got the job. And part of the job, though, was that you had to sing happy birthday at some point during the game to all the birthdays. You would be on the field, trivia, musical chairs, all that. And that stuff was great. They were like, your voice is terrible, which is funny because both my sisters are in Broadway. And they started taking those responsibilities away. And actually kind of at times, I'm not going to knock the organization. It's all good. But like, there were times where they were like, hey, we won't have you host tonight. Like, we're going to have you do the camera. But I also wanted to make money. So I did that job instead. I'm like, yeah, cool. I'll do the camera on certain nights. And when you have your great voice guy in there that you need. And on other nights when they have the PA announcer in who can do the happy birthday, because mine's so shitty, then I can do that. So yeah, there's been tons of rejection where I've spoken to places, spoken to networks. Hey, we love you, but whatever, that stuff's come up. It's not the same as Broadway. You go to auditions all the time. But I've dealt with plenty of that. And I think also early on in my career, there was one thing that I couldn't overcome. I looked 12, according to many. And coming into a national broadcasting job at 22, 23 years old, where there's some people you meet in college and they look 35, like from the jump. I was the opposite, right? Like, until you're 21, and even when you are for years, they don't believe your ID. So I thought that, the facial hair eventually in the last few years has helped, certain things like that. But early on in the career, that definitely got in my way pretty frequently, where I felt like, they'd be like, you're doing great. You just look so young, like certain execs would say to me. And I'm like, for other places too, because I worked for other spots, like MLB was home base, but there were other places. And I mean, I think that's bullshit, but like, it's fine, and it was different back then. I mean, I got into it. It's we're talking like early 2000s. So I don't think anyone cares about that anymore.
No, times are different, but you battled through it all, Scott. Now, I am so passionate about studying the habits and deconstructing performance of successful people. I've talked to Olympians, so many pro athletes, elite coaches, TV stars, Grammy winners, CEOs, you name it. I'm curious, you talked about, obviously the lesson from Ian Eagle. You've talked about some of what you've learned about the business of sports media and baseball media from covering the athletes and working with the athletes in the game. I'm curious, what are some of the things that you've taken away from your experience working with current and former baseball players and athletes from other sports that you've been able to just add to your life and your approach from a human performance perspective? How are some of those experiences and lessons making you better?
I would say treating everyone the same. So the starstruck thing was never a thing for me at all. I just feel like people are people and you're friends with them, never nervous on that front, right? Like I might get nervous on a certain broadcast. I remember like doing the draft one of the years when I was hosting it and I couldn't hear the producer in my ear. So I don't know what the pick is. I'm like, I would think anyone would be nervous if you don't know you can't hear the producer for the pick because it's too loud, stuff like that. But as far as working with players, yeah, I just think they're normal human beings and having conversations with them that are separate from the game. Most of my conversations are there. And that's actually something very different in baseball, say, versus hockey in my mind. With hockey, because I did NHL Network too, this is the example I like to use. You sit in a meeting with them, the conversation is all hockey. They're like obsessed, and that's fine. They're great guys. With baseball, depending on who you're hanging out with, the conversation might not be about baseball when you're hanging out with them on the side, right? Sometimes it is, and I love to talk shop on that front, but there's more to life than just baseball, just sports. So I definitely like to go down that route. I've tried to pick up some other interests, hobbies, fun So that's generally what I pick up, because also you want to connect with a ball player. Usually the first way to go is find out about either hobby, they have kids, whatever it is, something on that front. I don't have kids, so I don't do as well on those combos, although I have a niece and nephew who I feel like are my children. But when I'm talking to players, I know often what they like outside of the game, and they enjoy talking about that as well. There's some guys that really want to like kind of push that away. Like Mike Trout is the perfect example. If I was sitting with Mike Trout and I'm at a dinner with him, in my mind, that's one of the last things that he'd want to talk about coming off the game and everything else, like is, hey, let's talk about the Eagles. Let's talk about, he loves weather, like other categories that he likes. Many of the guys you want to have a good conversation right now with the young players in the game, at least I would say half of them talk video games. And I don't have a lot to contribute to the new ones nowadays. So I'm not a great combo there, but I can at least ask them about it because I used to be a big gamer growing up. So I would say that part, the human aspect, which is also part of what we're doing. I've always been on projects humanizing players. I did a podcast many years ago because I've been in this podcast space for a long time. My first podcast was with the Huffington Post in 2010. I did, and it was just, you could only get it by clicking online, right? So I was always into that. But then, fast forward, I did one with Kelly Nash at MLB. It wasn't at MLB. It was a separate company that we had pitched. And it was just a straight up humanizing players. More basic of bring someone on each week, talk about life, basically don't talk about baseball a little bit, but nothing intense or in depth. So anyway, that's what I've learned. Just people are people.
Even though, Scott, the conversation isn't always baseball, especially on the side, have you been able to make observations about how they go about honing their craft, how they go about building successful habits, creating good routines for them that you've been able to bring to your craft as a broadcaster and as a business person?
I would say dedication, routine, baseball especially, they get worked. They have a game every day. During the season, it's a lot. And if you're not on a good schedule, that's important. And the other thing is that I learned from, many of the players are really good at sleeping nowadays. Like many of them will sleep in. So I think that part's important too. I go in waves on that front where I try and say, you know what, no matter what, I got to log X amount of hours. And then, as you can probably imagine, lately that hasn't been great when you're just launching a whole new show and brand and everything. But I would say that's another piece of the puzzle that I've picked up on kind of the day to day of what they're doing and what makes them great. Because this in sports in general, there's millions of super talented. And it's different from getting a job. It's not like networking, like your performance is going to win out, but your performance usually wins out. There's very few that can be like, a Ken Griffey Jr. and probably just will always have the sweet swing and it can feel easy for him, see ball, hit ball. For most in sports in general, it's like you're here. And then because of your dedication and your prep and your reps and everything else, that's why you're up here and you can stay in the majors or in whatever sport you're in.
How do you balance all the different assignments and roles and kind of modes of delivery, right? Because I would imagine throughout your career, studio work, sideline work, play-by-play work, the business stuff, it's all kind of tapping into different reservoirs of skill sets. How do you reconcile that? How do you get in the zone for like whatever task you have at hand in the moment?
Head into the bunker, disappear from the outside world. Good at shutting everything off. I've been doing that recently. Sure, you're going to pick and choose your spots, but generally like in the sports industry, in the broadcast industry, like you have to be very aware that you are going to work a crazy amount of hours, most likely a lot of nights and weekends, a lot of just saying no to social events that seem pretty normal. Like even things, certain weddings and bigger events in life for people that you just can't do, So I would say that part of it is how I would adapt to each thing that I was doing is just time. If I'm picking something up new, or for a good example is for a national game of the week, if you're a team broadcaster, you have the same team, you see them, you know them, it's a little more in your head. If I'm doing a game of the week and every single week it's two different teams and you're exclusive, so now you're tapping into an audience that's used to hearing their broadcasters who know everything in and out about your team. The only way that I can play catch up there is to, of course, you're going to read and you're going to watch certain things. Like I'm talking watch, like as many games as I can without overdoing it because you got the game from the week before. So I take it piece by piece, right? I have the rest of my job going on. In the past, I'm hosting NHL shows, I'm hosting MLB shows, traveling, and then whatever that game of the week is, or multiple games if I'm doing them, I'm looking at their schedule and I have to watch or listen to most of their games, especially in that particular series, because I've been in the digital front with that, right? I worked for YouTube and Facebook, all these places that did exclusive MLB games. And the audience, some of the audience was already trying to be like, hey, like I want my game on my regular regional network or whatever, like the, get off my lawn situation, even though we're giving you the same thing, but it's on tech, it's different people. So the only thing you can do is just try to give them the best possible product. And doing that in my mind is knowing the team as if it's like someone covering the team on a daily basis, but you can't mimic, but you can only get there with time, and you only have a certain amount of time. So time budgeting, but also just like letting go of most things and just focusing on that.
How do you organize the information? I remember I had a conversation with Melanie Newman, who's now a broadcaster with the Orioles, and she's done a bunch of different national things as well, as has been well documented. She had this like archaic like index card system where she would track different players and different things. What's your system? Because like you noted there, it's not like you're just doing play-by-play for one team. You've got to, when you were doing that, you have to keep track of everything and get read up pretty fast. And now I would imagine like the span of your focus even widens because you've got to stay so current with kind of a flow of information and current on things. How do you organize it all?
So as the guy who's talking about doing daily digital baseball shows, you would imagine I'm not handwriting's chicken scratch. I'm not doing index cards. Melanie's probably got amazing handwriting and that old school approach is great. Where do you think my prep's going on this?
On a Google Doc? On an iPhone? Where is it going?
Computers. Yeah, of course. I mean, technically, yeah, I can access. So I've got multiple screens up at all times for a game. So that includes, and I'm communicating often on some type of messaging app, whether it's GChat or now on my for the game that I'm doing, but now actually for the show that I host, because you're also kind of running a company at the same time, I'm deep into Slack. So I'm in multiple Slack channels. We have Slack channels about what's running on our ticker. We have Slack channels about what clips are good for social that we can put out right away. We have Slack channels about the guest who's coming on, who's going to ask the next question. If someone really wants to jump in, that's in a place 2,000-3,000 miles away, and we don't want to ever jump on each other unless we really need to. So there's a ton of that going on. I'm utilizing I'm an app monster. I have tons of them. I remember hearing from someone once, you only use X amount of apps in your phone. I'm like, okay, well, that's for the average person. I'm using 50, using them, where it's like you scroll through and they're being used. I mean, I just type one letter and it pops up in your search. But same thing for baseball prep. When I'm prepping for a game, Andrew, it's like I have this master document of, and I'm not going to say I'm the most organized person because I'm not, but I have a master document of teams, of players, conversations I've had, articles I've read that I'll tap into per player. And I use that for interviews just as much as I do for games. So for interviews, like on today's live show, we had Miles Michaelis, and I've spoken to him multiple times, pretty friendly with him in general. I have a ton of info on him. That is all in a specific document already that I just go into and I type MIL and it pops up on a control find. And then I'm there with the information that at least helps to draw me to what I want to talk to him about.
Okay, Scott, as we start to wrap up our conversation, I love just this behind the scenes look into the way you go about things. I mean, there's so much passion, so much energy in everything that you're doing. I'm curious, even with all the success, I know you're ambitious. What would you say is the biggest area of growth for you professionally, both as a broadcaster and on the business side?
I would say the biggest area of growth is knowing who I am, knowing what I'm worth, what I want to spend my time on, and fulfillment and feeling meaningful, which is kind of crazy. So on the MLB front, just to kind of give a little more context, I left there not full time. So I'm not doing 8,000 things a day for them. At the same time, might I still do some of the higher level events? I still haven't figured that part out, but this is and I've got a couple other things. I work for DirecTV Sports and doing things there. But as far as foul territory, this is my show, doing this every single day. And I feel a lot more fulfilled doing it for two reasons. One, I think the game needs it. And I'm not saying the game needs me. I'm just saying the game needs certain players that have a prominent voice to be talking to other players. And I think it will help from a content perspective. I think it'll help the sport. It draws attraction. There's been multiple headlines created already in a few weeks of the show from things that players are saying that are very impactful, whether it's helping out a kid or just giving insight on the sport that I think NFL and NBA are doing a really bang up job on. So that part is very meaningful. And then the other part is being able to be involved on a number of fronts like we talked about. Like, I'm not just a host or a broadcaster. I would consider that secondary when I'm talking about this job in this company. So for me, that's fulfillment and feeling meaningful and super excited about my job. Not that I wasn't with the previous setup that I had. I just like the current setup because, for example, I love doing sales. Like, I love going on a sponsor call and being like, this is what we do. This is how I think we can incorporate you. That stuff's just not possible at a massive company. Like, you're a broadcaster. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Now you can do all of that.
It's really neat to see how you've just kind of broken the mold, Scott, right? I mean, you're not going to just be contained to one thing. You're not just going to be a broadcaster. You're going to explore it all and tap into all these different interests and skill sets that you have. Okay, so I've got to ask. So if 50 years from now, a future Scott Braun is doing a story on your career, what's one or two things you'd want them to say about you?
Breaking ground in the baseball industry. That would be one from a work perspective. Like, hey, he was part of a project that changed the game. So a similar publication, like I would say the founding members and writers of The Athletic, I think they changed sports. They brought in-depth coverage that I think sports needed that wasn't there, from a localized perspective to breaking stories, that whole thing. That is the kind of aspiration, not to be exactly like that company. Of course, I'm just giving an example of meaningful job impact in the space. So that would be one. And then the second one, I mean, this could be more of like your basic answer, but he was around for his family. Because right now, I haven't always been great with that, but I'm luckily in a family that's full of entertainers and all of that. More in a different world, like they're in the dancing, singing, acting kind of world more. But I would say being around, and for them, we're fine. We see each other plenty. But like when I want to be, say, a dad, like the previous setup that I had, I don't think was very conducive to, like being around a kid, or at least not what I want to have. So I'd want to be just like, that's on the personal family side. I'm more involved human within my family life, which hopefully I'm able to create by also being part of something that gives more job flexibility. The one thing, sure, it's not easy to create, but I've never had any consistency or routine in my schedule. And I've also lived off a calendar that gets sent to you a few days before the month starts and then changes every day. All good. It's just that if I knew what I was getting into, although to that extent, it's probably a little much, but if I can avoid it, I don't want that to be the setup for my entire life, because I feel like I would at times probably be, in my mind, not as involved as like a family member as I would want to be.
Well, you've taken that advice to say yes to as many things as you possibly can, and you've done an amazing job, Scott. Now you've got an opportunity to build something that you're so passionate about. I can't wait to see where all of this tarp pulling you're doing goes from here. We'll have to check in from time to time. Good luck with Foul Territory. Thank you for spending a little bit of time with me this week. And like I say, keep pulling the tarp. All right, Scott?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, Andrew. And please do. I mean, I'm all about this. So I love having conversations, very open. I mean, this is the medium that I'm trying to get much more involved into. So I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for joining me this week. Be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you can catch all of our upcoming episodes. And if you are like me and want a world full of tarp pullers, then leave a review to help others find us. You can also follow me on Twitter at Andrew H. Moses. That's Andrew H. Moses. And be sure to sign up for my email newsletter at everybodypullsthetarp.com/newsletter. I'll share tips and insights to help you achieve maximum success and happiness. Today's a great day to pull the tarp. I am rooting for you. See you next time.